Hey everyone, Sarah here. Rewind Justice brings you revenge stories that will blow your mind. If you're ready, hit subscribe and let's go.
There is a photograph on my grandmother's mantelpiece that I have been looking at my entire life without understanding it. It is a picture of her at 31, younger than I am now, standing in front of a 1974 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme in a parking lot somewhere. She is wearing a yellow dress. She is not smiling exactly, but there is something in her posture, some quality of uprightness, that reads the same as a smile. The car is hers. You can tell by the way she is standing next to it, not posed beside it like a prop, but beside it the way you stand beside something that belongs to you. I asked her once when I was maybe 11 whose car that was. Mine, she said. What happened to it? She was quiet for a moment. Then, someone decided it belonged to them more than it belonged to me. And I was young enough and unsteady enough, and I let them make that argument. I didn't understand what she meant. I moved on. I forgot about it for 15 years. I don't forget about it anymore. My name is Simone Garrett. I am 27 years old. I live in Memphis, Tennessee, in a second-floor apartment on Evergreen Avenue in the Midtown neighborhood, and I work as a research coordinator at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital on Danny Thomas Place, a job I have held for 3 years and which I love with a specificity and a certainty that I do not love many things with. In my family there has always been a word for what I am. The word is easygoing. My mother, Renee Garrett, uses it the way a chef uses salt, liberally and to bring out flavor she already decided was there. Simone's easygoing, she says. She has been saying it since I was in middle school. She says it at the beginning of conversations where she is about to ask me to give something up, and she says it at the end of those conversations as a kind of benediction, proof that the transaction went smoothly, that I was, as advertised, easy to work with. My brother Darius, who is 30 and has been the family's son since the day he was born, benefits from this characterization enormously. When resources are distributed in our family, attention, money, help, time, they flow toward Darius by default and toward me by exception. This is not stated policy. It does not need to be. It is simply the architecture of how we have always operated, so thoroughly normalized that questioning it feels, to everyone except me, like a category error. Like asking why water flows downhill. My grandmother Nora Garrett, my father's mother, 72 years old, retired after 28 years as a loan officer at First Tennessee Bank on Union Avenue, has been watching this architecture for a long time. She has not always said what she thought about it, but she has been watching. I know this now. I did not know it until 11 months before the night she proved it. Let me tell you about the Subaru. My grandmother Nora bought herself a 2019 Subaru Outback in Wilderness Green the year she retired. A reward, she called it, for 28 years of approving other people's loans and finally getting to make a decision for herself. She drove it for 2 years before her ophthalmologist at the Hamilton Eye Institute on Wolf River Boulevard told her she had the early stages of macular degeneration in her left eye and recommended she limit night driving significantly. She decided the following spring to give the car to me. She did not offer it to Darius. She did not put it to a family vote. She called me on a Sunday evening and said, "Simone, I want you to have the Outback. I've been thinking about it for a while. You're the one who comes to see me. You're the one who took me to my appointments when my eye got bad. I want you to have it." I cried a little. She told me not to be sentimental. She had the car serviced at Wolf Chase Subaru in Bartlett. Full inspection, new rear brake pads, oil change. And she drove it to my apartment on Evergreen Avenue on a Saturday morning in May, and she handed me the keys in my parking lot and she said, "You earned this. Not as a gift. You earned it. I want you to hold on to that word. Earned." She had the title transferred into my name at the Shelby County Clerk's office on Poplar Avenue the following Monday. I have the paperwork. I have always had the paperwork. That is relevant. I drove the Subaru for 8 months. The conversation that started everything happened on a Thursday evening in January, and it started like most of the worst things in my life, with my mother calling me to tell me to be reasonable. "Darius needs a reliable vehicle," she said. "He's got the new position at AutoZone Corporate. He needs to make a good impression. His Altima is falling apart." I waited. "Mama, Nora's car, the Subaru, it's only 3 years old. It's in great shape." "It's my car," I said. "Simone." The way she said my name. Long, patient. Carrying a kind of exhaustion with it, as though the reasonableness she was about to ask me to perform was already making her tired. "Darius has an opportunity. You work 4 miles from your apartment. You could manage. I said no. I already mentioned it to Mama Nora, she said. I told her you'd probably be willing to work something out. She said she understood. I felt something go cold in my chest. Not the anger would come later. This was something before the anger. This was the moment of knowing. You told Grandma I was willing, I said. I told her you'd probably be open to discussing it. And she said she understood. She said it made sense. You know how she is. She's not going to make a scene. I did not sleep that Thursday night. I lay in my apartment on Evergreen Avenue listening to the traffic on the street below and turning over what my mother had said. She said it made sense. That did not sound like my grandmother. My grandmother is a woman who spent 28 years approving and declining loans based on documentation. She does not say things make sense unless she has reviewed the documentation. I called her Friday morning before work. Mama Nora, I said. Mom told you I agreed to give Darius the Subaru. A beat of silence. The kind that is not empty. She told me you said you didn't mind, Grandma Nora said. I never said that. I told her no. The silence this time was longer. I see, she said. Just that. I see. No anger in it. No dramatic pause. The 2 words of a woman who has just confirmed something she had already suspected and is now, quietly, deciding what to do with the confirmation. Mama Nora. I hear you, she said. I'll handle it. You don't have to. Simone. Her voice was warm but final. I said I'll handle it. Go to work. I went to work. I did not know then that I'll handle it meant 11 months of deliberate, patient, methodical preparation. I did not know she had already called Phyllis Drummond, her estate attorney at Drummond & Associates on South 2nd Street downtown, before I'd even gotten off the 14 bus on Danny Thomas Place. I did not know about the document she had asked Phyllis to draft, or the sealed envelope she had put in the fireproof lockbox under her bed on Kimbrough Avenue, or the conversation she had with her son, my Uncle James, 3 weeks later, asking him to be available on a specific date in December. I did not know any of that. What I knew was that the Subaru was gone from my parking spot on Evergreen Avenue by the following Tuesday. My mother had Darius pick it up while I was at work. She texted me, he got the car. Thank you for understanding. I had not said I understood. I had said no. Twice. I did not respond to the text. I pulled up the Mata Transit app and looked at bus routes, and I sat with the feeling of it. The specific, particular feeling of being moved without your consent by people who have mistaken your patience for permission. And I let myself feel it fully because I have learned that unfelt things don't go away. They just go underground. Then I went about my life. In the 8 months between January and December, I did the following things. I got up every morning and took the 14 bus to St. Jude. I coordinated research protocols for a pediatric oncology study. I ate lunch most Tuesdays with my colleague Priya Nair in the hospital cafeteria, and we talked about our work and our lives, and she once said to me without knowing the context, "You know what I've noticed about you? You absorb things. You take hits and you just absorb them and keep moving. That's a skill. But it can also be a trap." I thought about that for a long time afterward. I visited Grandma Nora every Sunday. We had a routine. I would arrive at her house on Kimbrough Avenue around noon, and she would have something on the stove, neck bones and butter beans, or her chicken and sausage gumbo, or in summer her cold cucumber soup that she learned from a co-worker named Bernadette in 1991 and has made every July since. We would eat and we would talk, and she would ask about my work with the specificity of someone who has actually retained what I told her the week before. She never brought up the car. I never brought up the car. It existed between us as a known thing that did not need to be discussed because it was already being addressed. I know that now. At the time it just felt like Sundays. In October she mentioned the birthday dinner. She was turning 72 in December. She was born on the 15th, a Thursday, and she wanted to do something real. Not a restaurant. The house. Catered, she said. She had already called Alcinia's on Monroe Avenue, her favorite soul food restaurant in Memphis, to arrange a delivery. She wanted family. She wanted neighbors. She wanted her book club from the Shelby County Public Library on Peabody Avenue. She estimated 46 people. "I need you there early," she said. "Before anyone else." I did not ask why. With Grandma Nora, before anyone else always means something. How early? 2 o'clock. The dinner's at 6. I said I'd be there. 3 weeks before the dinner, she called me on a Sunday evening after I'd already left her house and said, "I want to tell you something. I have been working on something since February. Since the morning after you called me about the car. Boz. I need you to trust me that it is handled. And I need you to walk into that dinner on the 15th with your chin level and your hands still. Whatever your mother says when she gets there. Whatever Darius says. You hold your ground and you let me do what I've been building toward." "Hey," I said. "I was the easygoing one in my own family," she said. "In Burlington when I was your age. You didn't know that." She paused again. "I had a car once that wasn't mine anymore by the end of the same year I got it. I stayed quiet about it for 50 years. I am not quiet about it anymore." I thought about the photograph on the mantelpiece. The yellow dress. The Oldsmobile. I understood. I arrived at the house on Kimbrough Avenue at 2 o'clock on the 15th of December. Memphis in December is cold in a way that surprises people who think of it as a southern city. A damp, insistent cold that comes off the Mississippi and settles into your coat. And I was wearing my good burgundy wool jacket and my grandmother's street was quiet in the afternoon gray. She met me at the door. She was wearing a deep burgundy wrap dress, the same color as my jacket, which felt like something, though she would say it was coincidence, and a single strand of gold beads that I had seen on her at every important occasion of my life. She looked at me the way she had looked at me in October when she said, "I'll handle it." Certain. Fully present. Already at the finish line in her mind. We sat at her kitchen table and she showed me the document. It was a 2-page notarized statement, prepared by Phyllis Drummond of Drummond & Associates, dated February 3rd, 12 days after I had called her. It attested in the specific and unambiguous language of a loan officer turned legal client who has always understood the difference between what is said and what is written, that the 2019 Subaru Outback had been gifted by Nora Jean Garrett specifically and exclusively to Simone Renee Garrett, that the title had been legally transferred at the Shelby County Clerk's office, and that no other family member had any authority to transfer, reclaim, or redirect the vehicle without the written, notarized consent of Simone Renee Garrett. The second page was a revised section of her estate documents, updated the same week, specifying that all personal property gifts made to named individuals were governed by the same exclusion clause. She had also, she told me, sent a certified copy to her own home address on February 4th. The returned envelope with the postmark had been sitting in her fireproof lockbox since February 7th. "Why the postmark?" I asked. "Proof of date," she said. "I used to do this at the bank when I needed to establish when a decision was made. The postmark is a timestamp that can't be altered." She folded her hands. "Your mother may tell people tonight that she didn't know, or that the situation was unclear, or that she acted in good faith. The date on this document is February 3rd, 11 months ago. That predates every conversation she has had about this since." I looked at her. "She walked into a room that was already built," I said. "Yes," Grandma Nora said. "She did." She reached across the table and touched my hand once. Then she stood up and said, "Help me with the tablecloths. The caterers come at 4. The guests arrived between 5:30 and 6. The house on Kimbrough Avenue is a brick bungalow built in 1948, narrow but deep, and Grandma Nora had arranged the furniture so the dining room and living room opened into a single long space, tables running end to end, enough seating for all 46. Alcinia's had delivered at 4:15 ribs and smothered chicken and sweet potato casserole and the cornbread that people in Memphis will drive across town for. And the house smelled of it, warm and deep, the kind of smell that makes a house feel inhabited in the best possible way. My Uncle James arrived at 5:45 with his wife Claudette. James is my father's brother. My father, Robert Garrett, died when I was 14, a cardiac event, sudden, and James stepped into the closest available version of that role with more grace than most men would have managed. He is 54 now, a high school history teacher at Whitehaven High School on Elvis Presley Boulevard, a man who chooses his words carefully and means what he says. Grandma Nora had spoken to him 3 weeks earlier. He knew what was coming. When he hugged me at the door he said quietly, just below the noise of the arriving guests, "Your grandmother is one of the most prepared women I have ever known. You're going to be okay." My mother arrived at 6:05 with Darius and his girlfriend Keisha. Darius was driving the Subaru. I saw it pull up through the window before I moved away from it. He was wearing a new sport coat. He looked comfortable. He had no idea. Keisha had met me twice before at family events, and both times I had liked her in a complicated way. She was warm and perceptive, and I sensed, watching her sometimes at family dinners, that she saw more of what was happening in the room than she let on. She greeted me at the door with a hug that was slightly longer than a casual hug and said, "You doing okay?" "I'm doing fine," I said. She studied me for half a second. She knew something was different. She is the kind of person who does. She let it go and she went inside, and I watched her find a seat near the back where she could see the whole room. Smart woman. My mother hugged Grandma Nora. Long hug. Genuine. My mother loves her mother-in-law, which is the part that makes this complicated and human. She hugged me next and said, "You look beautiful," and meant it, and I said thank you, and both of these things were true and none of them were the point. The dinner moved through its rhythms. People ate. Children ran between the tables. Grandma Nora's book club friends, Evelyn, Pat, and Dolores, 3 women who have been meeting at the Peabody Branch Library every third Thursday for 11 years, occupied one end of a table and talked over each other with the comfortable chaos of people who do not need to fight for airtime. The room was warm and full of the smell of food and the sound of family. At 7:15, Grandma Nora stood up. She did not need to raise her voice. She has the quality, rare and formidable, of silence that commands attention. A stillness that spreads outward when she settles into it, like dropping a stone in water. The room noticed her standing, and the conversations slowed and then stopped, one cluster at a time, until 46 people were looking at her. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "I want to do something a little different before we cut the cake. I want to take care of some family business." The phrase family business in the South carries weight. People sat up slightly. She reached into the front of her wrap dress, a small interior pocket I had not noticed, and withdrew a sealed cream envelope. She set it on the table in front of her. She looked down the table at her son. "James," she said, "would you open that and read it to us, please?" My mother's head turned. She looked at the envelope. She looked at Grandma Nora. Her expression was not yet alarmed. She was still in the mode of a woman who believes she controls the shape of things, still operating on the assumption that this room was the same room it had been when she walked into it at 6:05. James stood. He picked up the envelope. He broke the seal with the careful deliberateness of a man who knows what he is doing and why, and he withdrew 2 pages. He read silently for a moment. My mother said, "What is that?" Nobody answered her. James cleared his throat. He read. He read the full statement. The date, the description of the vehicle, the VIN number of the Subaru Outback, the specificity of the Shelby County title transfer, the notarized declaration that the vehicle belonged solely to Simone Renee Garrett, that no other family member held transfer authority, that this statement had been prepared on February 3rd of that year by Phyllis Drummond of Drummond and Associates. He read it in the clear, measured voice of a high school history teacher who has read primary documents aloud for 22 years and understands that the words carry more weight than any commentary he could add. He read it to the end. Then he set the pages on the table and he sat down. The room was silent. Not the brief silence between sentences. The long silence that means people are processing something they did not expect to process tonight. My mother said, "I don't understand, Mama Nora, I talked to you about this. You said." "I know what I said," Grandma Nora said. "And I know what Simone said. And I know what you told Simone I said and what you told me Simone said." She did not raise her voice. He did not need to. "I've known since February." My mother's face moved through several things at once. "I would like to address something," Grandma Nora said, and now she looked at the room. All 46 people, the full sweep of them, book club and cousins and neighbors and the children who had stopped running and were standing very still near the kitchen door. In this family there has been a habit. Not a new one. A long one. The habit is this. One person works quietly and is patient and is called easygoing, and that patience is mistaken for absence. For the absence of needs, for the absence of claim, for the absence of feelings that require consideration. The easygoing one can be rearranged. The easygoing one will figure it out. The easygoing one won't make a scene. She paused. I was the easygoing one in my own house 60 years ago. I had things I earned that were taken and reframed as gifts to the family, and I was told I was being generous, and I did not correct that version of the story because I was young and I wanted to keep the peace. Her voice was still even. Still that steady, documentary calm. I have spent 60 years knowing I should have corrected it. Tonight I am making up for some of that. Darius had not moved. He was sitting 3 seats down from my mother, his sport coat suddenly looking a size too large, and I watched him look at the Subaru keys sitting on the table in front of him and look away from them. He is not, I want to say again, a bad person. He accepted what was offered. That is different from what my mother did. I don't think he understood until tonight what the offering had cost. Keisha, at the back of the room, was looking at her hands on the table. My mother said, "Mama Nora. I was trying to help Darius." "I know," Grandma Nora said. "You have always been trying to help Darius. I understand that. But helping Darius by taking from Simone and telling Simone she agreed and telling me she agreed is not help. That is something else. And it has been the pattern in this family since these children were small, and I am standing up in front of everyone tonight to say that the pattern ends." The room held still. "Simone earned that car," she said. "She came to my appointments when I couldn't drive at night. She came every Sunday for 3 years without being asked. She showed up. That is what earned means. It is not a gift you can redirect to someone who did not do the showing up." She looked at me directly then. Across the room. 46 people between us and it felt like none. "The car goes back," she said. "The title has been in Simone's name since April of last year. The notarized statement you just heard read establishes that clearly. Phyllis Drummond is available by phone tomorrow if anyone needs to review the documentation." She picked up her water glass. "Now," she said, "I'd like to cut my birthday cake." There is a particular kind of silence that is not emptiness but fullness. A silence so dense with things unspoken that it has a texture. The room had that silence for about 4 seconds after Grandma Nora sat down. Then Evelyn from the book club, who is 73 years old and has the moral authority of a woman who has outlasted most of her opponents, said, "Happy birthday, Nora. That was long overdue." A few people laughed, the released, pressurized laugh of people who have been holding their breath. My mother did not laugh. She was sitting with her hands flat on the table, looking at the center of the tablecloth, and I watched her do the work of containing whatever was moving through her. I did not feel triumph watching that. I want to say that clearly. I felt tired and relieved and sad in the way you are sad when something true has finally been said and you realize how long it waited to be said. Darius looked at me. Not with anger. With something that was not comfortable to hold. The expression of a man who has just understood something about his own life that he would have preferred not to understand tonight. He said my name quietly across the table. "I didn't know she said no," he said. "Mom told me it was worked out." I looked at him. "I know," I said. "I'll get you the keys." "I know you will," I said. Keisha, who had been very quiet, put her hand over Darius's on the table and did not say anything. That gesture said more than she probably intended. She had known. Or suspected. And she had made her private accounting of it, and here, tonight, her accounting was visible. I walked to where my grandmother was standing near the cake. She was having a piece cut by her neighbor Mrs. Yvonne Strickland, who has lived 2 doors down on Kimbrough Avenue for 19 years and who was beaming at my grandmother with the fierce pride of someone who has watched a very patient person finally be very patient for the last time. Grandma Nora looked at me when I reached her. "Okay," she said. "Yeah," I said. She handed me a plate with a slice of cake on it. Lemon with cream cheese frosting from the Muddy's Bake Shop on Warford Street, her standing birthday order for as long as I can remember, and she touched my shoulder once briefly the way she touches things she loves. My mother found me near the back of the house at 8:30, near the end of the evening, when the guests were beginning to say their goodbyes. She had not spoken to me since before Grandma Nora stood up. She looked smaller than she had at 6 o'clock. Not diminished. My mother is not a woman who diminishes easily, but recalibrated. Like a person who has had to revise the map they were using. "I didn't think you cared that much," she said. "About the car." "I told you no," I said. "Twice. I thought you were just easygoing," I said. "I know." She was quiet. "I'm not easygoing," I said. "I'm patient. Those aren't the same thing. Patient means I was waiting for the right moment to tell you clearly that this doesn't work for me. Tonight was that moment. Grandma just got there first." My mother looked toward the front of the house, where Grandma Nora was saying goodbye to the book club. "She's been planning this since February," my mother said. "She has." A long pause. "I lied to her," my mother said. Not defensively. Just acknowledging it, the way you finally say a word you have been refusing to say. "Yes." Another pause. Longer. I'm not asking you to fix this tonight, I said. I'm not asking you to apologize right now because I think an apology right now would be more about making you feel better than about actually working something out. What I'm asking is that the next time you need something from me, you ask me. You don't tell me I already agreed. You don't tell Grandma I offered. You ask me and you hear what I say, and if I say no, that's the answer. She looked at me for a long time. That's fair, she said quietly. I nodded. The Subaru keys were in my coat pocket by 9 o'clock. Darius had brought them to me without ceremony during the cake, and we had stood together for a moment in the way of siblings who are redrawing something between them. Not dramatically, not with speeches, just quietly adjusting to a new arrangement of the furniture. I'll get a car, he said. I was looking at one anyway. Good, I said. You know Mom wasn't trying to. I know what she was trying to do, I said. And I know she wasn't trying to hurt me. That's the part that makes it hard to explain to her. That you can take something from someone without trying to hurt them. That those things can both be true. He thought about that. Then he nodded. I drove home to Evergreen Avenue that night. December cold, the city quiet, the Mississippi somewhere to the west of me, dark and moving. I stopped at the corner of Kimbrough and Central to let a light change, and I sat in the car that had been mine all along. Title in my name since April of last year. A document in Phyllis Drummond's office since February. A grandmother who had been preparing since the morning after I called her. And I felt something loosen in my chest. Not everything. Not all at once. But something. My grandmother was the easygoing one once. She had a car she earned and she watched it become someone else's, and she stayed quiet about it for 60 years and never forgave herself for the quiet. She did not stay quiet tonight. She had walked into that dinner party knowing exactly what was inside the sealed envelope, knowing exactly what the date on the document said, knowing that every conversation my mother had tried to have about the car since February had been happening in a room that was already decided. She had not reacted. She had planned. She was 72 years old and she had been patient and deliberate and certain, the way she has been certain about every important thing in her life, and she had sat at the head of her own birthday table and she had corrected the record in front of everyone who needed to hear it corrected. I parked on Evergreen Avenue and sat in the car for a minute before going up. The street was quiet. The heat from the engine ticked as it cooled. I thought about the photograph on the mantelpiece. The yellow dress. The Oldsmobile Cutlass. The posture of a young woman standing next to something that belonged to her. I thought, I'm not the easygoing one anymore. Not because I had become someone hard. Not because I had decided to stop absorbing the way Priya said I absorbed things. But because I had finally understood that there is a difference between patience and permission. That staying quiet is a choice and that the choice can be changed. The door between me and my mother is not closed. It has a condition on it, stated plainly in a parking lot on a Tuesday night at 8:30, heard by the woman it was meant for. Ask me. Hear what I say. If I say no, that's the answer. The condition is not complicated. It is the minimum requirement of being treated as a person rather than a resource. I do not think it is too much to ask. I went upstairs. I made tea. I looked out the window at Evergreen Avenue and the December cold. I called Grandma Nora. She answered on the second ring. You home safe, she said. Home safe, I said. Good, she said. Come Sunday. I'll have something on the stove. I'll be there, I said. I will always be there. Drop a 7 in the comments if you have ever been called easygoing by someone who meant they were counting on you not to fight back.